Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome to our wonderful second installment of World Leaders Tonight. I am your host, the 40th President of the United States, Ronald Reagan. This evening, we have 4 very special guests. My predecessor, President Jimmy Carter. The Soviet General Secretary, Mikhail Gorbachev. The General Secretary of East Germany, Erich Honecker. And last but not least, the author of Charter 77, Václav Havel. Without further ado, let's get to our first guest of the night. Please welcome former President Jimmy Carter. How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you, former Mr. President.
Anyway, I wanted to bring you in tonight so that we could discuss the differences in our policies and outlooks.
All right.
I aim to cut federal spending, though I was unsuccessful. I did rearrange taxes. I'm still highly praised, even though total federal tax takes were the same as before when I left office. My leadership was so strong that everyone simply overlooked the details.
Let's not forget the effort I put into increasing the United States' security. I proposed a 3% increase in our country's defense budget so that we could defend ourselves if need be.
You wanted to increase the number of nuclear weapons? During my time as president, disarmament, détente, was my #1 priority.
You say that as if I was not for détente. In reality, I supported it with Brezhnev long before you came along.
Well, I significantly improved our security with my SDI program. I prevented mutually assured destruction. Your foreign policy was a failure.
But Soviet leaders found the SDI highly threatening. It was nicknamed Star Wars for a reason. And besides, it was critiqued so much that it never got anywhere. My foreign policy certainly was not perfect. I'll agree with you on that. But I think I was able to make some progress. Brezhnev and I signed SALT II, and though it was never ratified by Congress, we honored it for many years. I was also the first president to make universal human rights a focus of my campaign.
That is all well and good, but your decision to give the Panama Canal back to Panama was horrible.
I disagree, Ronald, that the signing of the treaty will ensure a peaceful and prosperous and secure future for an international waterway of great importance, and it marks the commitment of the U.S. to the belief that fairness and not force should lie at the heart of our dealings with the nations of the world. For an agreement between 2 nations to last, it must serve the best interests of both nations. The treaties improve U.S. relations with all nations in our hemisphere, not only Panama.
Well, I vastly improved U.S.-Soviet relations. I even visited Moscow. You boycotted the 1980 Moscow Olympics.
Yes, but I also vastly improved our relationship with China, so much that they even gave us 2 adorable pandas.
Oh, look at the time. Thanks for coming on the show, Carter.
My pleasure.
Our next guest is here to talk about Soviet-U.S. relations and shed some light on the recent policy changes in the USSR. Let's give a warm welcome to Mikhail Gorbachev.
It's Mikhail. Hello.
Moving on. What are your thoughts about the recent denuclearization talks?
Well, I hope we can make some compromises. Economically, disarmament would be mutually beneficial. If military wasn't draining the budget, the money for arms could go to civic projects for the people of our countries.
That's very true, although I'd rather increase the defense budget to ensure that any potential attacks are avoided. Peace through strength. My goal has always been to reduce the presence of nuclear arms overall. However, in order to convince you Soviets, I've been trying to put pressure with superior arms reserves and SDI to keep us protected.
Well, if you dropped SDI, your protection would be guaranteed. I'm willing to work with you, but the arms race should stay out of space. If you stop wasting your time with SDI, maybe our talks would get somewhere.
Like I said at the Geneva Summit of 1985, SDI was being developed not to gain an advantage, but to offer safety against the accidents or outlaw nations. I offered many times to share this technology with the Soviets.
I never believed you. Well, at least we made some progress with the INF Treaty. Intermediate range nuclear missiles shouldn't be a threat anymore.
Yes, thankfully we agreed on that. Let's move on. I would now like to bring on another guest for a group discussion on the reforms happening in Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union. Joining us, let's say hello to Erich Honecker.
Hello, Secretary Honecker. You look well.
No thanks to you and your damn reforms that are damaging the fabric of communism.
Those who don't change get left behind. I'm trying to mend an ailing system.
In my opinion, change is not always better. You should be imprisoned for treason against the Soviet Union for even suggesting that there's a system better than communism. Why, Brezhnev must be rolling over in his grave.
I agree with Gorby. Communism is failing. You are naturally turning to democracy. Ah, the irony. Maybe your living standards will finally be decent now.
I'll have you know our living standards are just fine, thank you. East Germany receives an abundance of support from West Germany, and we are thriving.
Secretary, you must admit that President Reagan has a point.
See? Even Gorby agrees. Democracy is best for the people. Moving on. What are your thoughts on the current Berlin Wall issue?
I have been the leader of East Germany since this wall was constructed. Tearing it down is equivalent to making the entire USSR capitalist. We cannot let the scum of these foreign nations infect the pure minds of our people with Western ideals.
I think that is a decision best left to the rulers of each individual country. That is the point of perestroika. Moscow has tried to control the decision of its satellites for too long with little success. So perhaps it is time we attempt to give them the opportunity to decide what kind of government they want to live under.
Hogwash! They're already living under the best government in the world. Why could they possibly want more?
More? As if your limiting government is enough. Ha! How about free speech, free assembly, no censorship, and consumer goods that are always in stock? And not to mention large houses, enough food, a choice of jobs, education, and religion, the freedom for individuals to be whoever they want to be. The United States of America government is the best government in the world, and everyone knows it. Even God knows it. All right, well, thanks for your time, Honecker.
My pleasure.
Now introducing the President of Czechoslovakia, Viktor Havel.
It's Vaclav, but thanks for having me.
But of course, you played a significant role in the protests that helped end communism.
As an activist for human rights, I simply stood up for what I believed in. The plastic people of the universe were jailed for no reason, and it inspired me to write Charter 77 based off the Helsinki Accords. Things pretty much just continued from there.
Human rights are extremely important. I understand you face some consequences for writing Charter 77, though.
Unfortunately, many of the signatories lost their jobs and were exiled. Their children lost access to education. I was sentenced to 4 years of hard labor, but during that time I was inspired to write The Power of the Powerless.
What message were you trying to convey with the power of the powerless?
Really, I wanted to provide hope to my people. I wanted to show them that we are not powerless if we behave like we are free. I tried to live as if I was free, even when I knew I was being monitored by the secret police.
You showed tremendous bravery. Gorbachev, do you have plans to interfere with their new civic forum government?
No. Although some of the Eastern European countries are drifting away, I'd rather save my resources and not start an invasion like a Prague Spring in '68. In combination with perestroika, reducing military involvement and distancing the USSR from satellites will help recover the economy. All the subsidies are costly.
Thank you, sir, for allowing Czechoslovakia the freedom to self-determine.
I have one last question for Gorbachev. How do you feel about the idea that your reforms might cause the fall of communism in your own country?
Although I would regret the fall of communism, reforms had to be made. The Soviet Union has been suffocating under the shackles of the bureaucratic demand system. We've been doomed to cater to ideology, suffer and carry the burden of the arms race. I'd say that the old system fell apart even before my system began to work.
Well, I wish you the best, Mr. Gorbachev. We may not agree politically, but you have been a dedicated leader, and I can admire you for that. That's all for tonight, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the second and last installment of World Leaders Tonight.